I'll never forget the sound of my own signature. Not the pen scratching paper. Not the gasps from 200 guests. The sound of my heart breaking so loud I thought everyone could hear it. My name is Naomi Carter. And on Christmas Eve, at a party meant to celebrate love, I signed away my marriage while champagne dripped from my hair, and my husband's mistress laughed in my face. They threw me out into the snow with $500 and told me to disappear. Hello, friends. Welcome to Black White Stories. Before we begin today's story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love hearing from our global family. What they didn't know was that 3 hours earlier, I'd received a phone call that would turn their glittering world into ash. If you've ever been underestimated because of where you came from or what you look like, you need to hear this. Hit subscribe right now because what happened next will restore your faith that karma is real. Drop a comment if you believe the truth always comes to light. Trust me, you won't see this coming. Let me take you back to that night. The night I was humiliated in front of everyone who mattered. The night that changed absolutely everything. The Montgomery estate looked like something out of a dream. Fresh snow covered the grounds in perfect white. The mansion glowed with thousands of white lights wrapped around columns and doorways. A 20-foot Christmas tree stood in the main entrance, dripping with gold ornaments and crystal icicles that caught the chandelier light. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Women in fur coats. Men in wool overcoats that cost more than most people make in months. And there was me, standing at the service entrance in my old cream sweater and brown coat, the only winter clothes I owned, watching it all like I was looking through glass at someone else's life. I'd been married to Derek Montgomery for 5 years. 5 years of working 3 jobs while he built his real estate empire. 5 years of his mother Vivian treating me like the help. 5 years of his father Richard looking at me like I tracked mud on his Persian rugs. 5 years of his sister Celeste posting photos with captions about knowing your place. I was a black woman from the South Side, raised by my grandmother in a 2-bedroom apartment with bars on the windows. Never knew my parents. Never had new clothes or birthday parties. Never owned anything that wasn't secondhand or borrowed. When Derek walked into the hospital where I worked as a nurse's aide, I thought it was fate. He was handsome, successful, from old money. He said he loved me. He said none of that other stuff mattered. I was so foolish to believe him. Vivian opened the door, wearing a silver gown that probably cost 6 months of my salary. Diamonds at her throat and wrists. She looked at me the way you look at something stuck to your shoe. You're late, she said. Guests need their coats taken. Get inside and be useful. Not hello, not Merry Christmas, just commands. I swallowed my pride. I'd gotten good at that over 5 years. I walked into the house that had never once felt like home. The party was already in full swing. Men in expensive suits discussing mergers and acquisitions. Women in designer gowns comparing their winter homes in Aspen and Monaco. And there was me, weaving through them, taking coats, completely invisible, except when someone needed something. I saw Derek across the crowded room, and my heart did that stupid thing it always did. That flutter of hope that maybe tonight would be different. He wore a charcoal suit tailored perfectly to his frame. His hair was styled with that casual elegance that took money to achieve, but he wasn't alone. There was a woman beside him, stunning in a champagne silk gown. Her hand rested on his arm like she owned him. Her name was Sienna. I'd heard Celeste mention her before, always in that sing-song voice she used when twisting the knife. That's Sienna Blackwell, Celeste had told me once. Her family owns half the banks in the state. She went to Yale. She summered in the Hamptons. She's perfect for Derek, actually from society, you know. Not like some people. I'd pretended not to hear. I'd gotten good at that, too. Richard cornered me near the kitchen. His breath reeked of expensive whiskey and cigars. You know what you are, Naomi? You're a charity case. We let Derek marry you because he was going through some rebellious phase. But charity has limits. My hands trembled holding the coat I was carrying. I've worked hard. I've supported Derek's business from the beginning. You cleaned offices and changed bedpans. He cut me off. You think that makes you worthy of this family? You're an embarrassment. Look at you. Look at your background. You're everything we're not. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw every painful truth in his face. Instead, I walked away, blinking back tears that burned like acid. That's what I always did. I survived. I endured. I told myself it would get better someday. Then Derek called for everyone's attention. The room fell silent. He stood on the raised platform near the Christmas tree, Sienna right beside him. My stomach dropped to my feet. I knew before he even opened his mouth. I just knew. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Derek said, his voice carrying across the marble hall. "I have an important announcement to make." He looked directly at me, right into my eyes. 5 years ago, I made a mistake. I married someone I thought I could change, someone I thought could fit into our world. But I've realized that mistake has held me back long enough. People turned to stare at me. Some looked uncomfortable. Most looked entertained, hungry for drama. Derek pulled papers from inside his jacket. "Naomi, these are divorce papers. I'm correcting my mistake tonight, in front of everyone who matters, so there's no confusion about where we stand." The room started spinning. Vivian stepped forward with this triumphant smile on her face like she'd won the lottery. "Sign them," Richard said loudly. "You came from nothing. You'll leave with nothing. That's what the prenup guarantees." I walked toward Derek on legs that didn't feel like my own. My face burned with shame. People were recording on their phones. Celeste was literally live-streaming this, laughing with her friends in the corner. "Did you really think you belonged here?" Sienna whispered as I approached. "Look at you. Look at where you came from. You're nobody." Derek handed me a pen. The papers were already open to the signature page. I tried to read them, but the words blurred through my tears. Prenuptial agreement. 0 assets. 0 compensation. 0 dignity. That's when Vivian threw her champagne in my face. The liquid was cold and sticky, soaking into my sweater and burning my eyes. The crystal glass shattered on the marble floor. The room gasped, then went completely silent. "That's for wasting 5 years of my son's life, you gold-digging nobody," Vivian said. I signed. My hand shook so badly the signature didn't even look like mine, but I signed. What else could I do? I had nothing. I was nothing. At least that's what they'd spent 5 years convincing me to believe. Derek handed me $500 bills for the bus. "Consider it charity." Security guards grabbed my arms. Actual security guards, like I was a criminal. They dragged me toward the entrance. People were laughing, taking pictures. Celeste shouted, "Buy trash. Don't come back where you don't belong." They threw me out the front gates into the snow. My wedding ring slipped off my frozen finger and disappeared into the white. I didn't bother looking for it. I just started walking. I ended up at a 24-hour diner 3 miles away, my phone at 2% battery, my sweater still damp with champagne and melted snow. I had $312 in my bank account and nowhere to sleep. I was crying so hard I couldn't catch my breath. The waitress kept glancing at me with pity, and somehow that made everything worse. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Miss Carter." A woman's voice. "Professional. Urgent. I think you have the wrong number," I said. "Your full name is Naomi Grace Carter, born April 7th. Raised by your grandmother Loretta Carter in Chicago." The woman paused. "My name is Angela Price. I'm calling from the Hartwell Foundation. It's about your mother." I hung up. Had to be a scam. I'd gotten those before. People trying to trick desperate people like me with promises of inheritances and long-lost relatives. The phone rang again and again. "Please listen," the woman said when I finally answered. "I'm sitting outside the diner right now. I have documents you need to see. Give me 5 minutes to prove everything." I looked out the window. There was a black Mercedes in the parking lot. 2 people got out. An elderly black man in a camel overcoat and a sharp-looking black woman in a gray peacoat. They walked into the diner and sat down across from me like this was completely normal. The man slid a folder across the table. "Open it." Inside were photographs, DNA test results, legal documents, birth certificates, and a picture of a woman who looked exactly like me. Same eyes, same face, same warm brown skin. She was holding a newborn baby wrapped in a pink blanket. "That's Dr. Elaine Hartwell," Angela said quietly. "Your mother. She died in a car accident when you were 6 months old." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The man leaned forward. "My name is James Hartwell. I'm your grandfather. Your mother was my daughter, my only child. When Elaine died, I was in the car with her. I survived with minor injuries, but in the chaos at the hospital, paperwork was mixed up and I was placed into foster care before anyone could find me. My grandmother Loretta had been a foster parent who later adopted me, never knowing my real identity because the records were sealed due to administrative errors. Hearing it felt unreal. Angela explained that my mother had been a neurosurgeon and my grandfather founded Hartwell Medical Technologies, a $4.3 billion global empire. According to her, I was the sole heir. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was impossible. Hours earlier, I'd been thrown out like trash. Now they were calling me a billionaire's granddaughter. I demanded proof. An hour later, I was driven to an estate that dwarfed the Montgomery mansion. There, in a wheelchair with an oxygen tank, sat a man with my eyes. James Hartwell looked at me and whispered my name, crying as he said I looked just like my mother. I broke down as he told me about Elaine, her brilliance, her compassion, and her dream of helping underserved communities. Then Angela revealed the final truth. James's business partner, Marcus Webb, had been running the company, believing there was no heir. He was corrupt, stealing millions and betraying the foundation's mission. We needed evidence first. I would stay hidden, learn the business, then take back what was mine. I agreed with one condition. The Montgomerys would fall first. Over the next 8 weeks, I transformed. Private tutors taught me business, finance, corporate law. I studied every aspect of Hartwell Medical Technologies. I learned to walk differently, speak differently, carry myself with the authority I'd never been allowed to have. And I hired investigators to dig into Derek and his family. What they found was devastating. Derek's real estate company was failing. He was $4 million in debt. He'd married Sienna not for love, but because her family's bank could extend his credit line. Richard's investment firm was being investigated for securities fraud. Vivian had a shopping addiction and owed $800,000 to various luxury brands. Celeste was being blackmailed over a drunk driving accident she'd covered up. But the worst part, Derek had taken the $16,000 I'd saved, money from my 3 jobs. Money I'd hidden for emergencies, for the future, for us. He'd gambled it away at private poker games. Then he'd forged my signature on loan documents. I was legally responsible for $68,000 in debts he'd created in my name. I didn't get angry. I got focused. I created a new identity, Naomi Hartwell. No more hiding my real name. I had my natural hair styled in elegant lokes. Wore custom-tailored suits that cost more than Derek spent on his car. I looked nothing like the girl they'd thrown out in the snow. I looked exactly like who I was supposed to be. Then I approached Richard Montgomery's investment firm with a $15 million investment proposal. He didn't recognize me. None of them did. The board meeting was surreal. I sat across from Richard, Vivian, Derek, and here's the twist, Marcus Webb, my grandfather's corrupt partner. Turned out he and Richard were partners in a fraudulent medical device scheme. "Miss Hartwell," Richard said, practically salivating, "your offer is extraordinarily generous." "I believe in investing in the right people," I said, looking directly at Derek. He kept staring at me like something was familiar, but he couldn't place it. Vivian insisted on a celebration dinner at the mansion. The same mansion where they'd humiliated me. I wore a burgundy silk suit and walked through those doors like I owned the world. Derek was there with Sienna, now his wife. She was pregnant, showing just slightly. But my investigators had already told me the truth. The baby wasn't Derek's. She'd been pregnant before they married. The real father was her ex-boyfriend from Yale. She'd trapped Derek for his money and his name. During dinner, I casually asked about Derek's previous marriage. Vivian laughed and waved it off, saying he had been married to some girl from the South Side, a nurse's aide or something, and bragged that they had gotten rid of her. Derek actually smiled and added that marrying her was the biggest mistake of his life, but divorcing her was the smartest decision he ever made. I recorded every single word, keeping my face neutral while their cruelty spilled out so easily. Later, Marcus pulled me aside, his gaze sharp and calculating. He said something about me felt off and warned that James Hartwell kept sending auditors to investigate the company. If I was connected to James, he said, I should know he had destroyed people for far less. I calmly replied that I was just an investor, but inside I knew my time was running out. Then Angela called. James had collapsed. His heart was failing faster than anyone expected. I rushed to the hospital, and with the little strength he had left, he grabbed my hand and told me to finish this, to take what was mine, and to make them pay for every tear and every moment they made me feel small. I promised him right then, no more waiting, no more hiding. I immediately called an emergency board meeting at Hartwell Medical Technologies and invited everyone, the Montgomerys, Marcus Webb, investors, board members, and the media. I announced that Naomi Hartwell would reveal a major merger and expose corporate fraud. When I walked into the packed conference room in a tailored black suit, my looks flawless and my posture unbreakable, I didn't look like a victim anymore. I looked powerful, untouchable. I stood at the podium and looked at every face in that room. My name is Naomi Grace Hartwell, I said. I am the daughter of Dr. Elaine Hartwell and the sole heir to Hartwell Medical Technologies and the Hartwell Foundation. Derek's face went completely white. Some of you knew me as Naomi Carter. The woman you humiliated? The woman you threw away like trash? I removed my glasses. Vivian gasped. I have evidence that Marcus Webb embezzled $73 million from this company. Federal agents are outside ready to arrest him. I nodded. Agents walked in. Marcus tried to run. They tackled him to the polished floor. I have evidence that Richard Montgomery and Marcus Webb engaged in securities fraud and sold faulty medical devices that harmed patients in underserved communities. Communities that looked like me. More agents flooded the room. Richard was handcuffed as Vivian screamed and Celeste cried, her phone recording not for clout, but for evidence of her family's collapse. I faced Derek. You threw $500 at me and called it charity. Said I came from nothing. I raised the documents. I now own the building your company operates in. You rent from me. Your lease is terminated 30 days to vacate. He went pale. You stole $16,000 from me, forged my signature, and buried me in debt. I smiled calmly. Those debts are legally back in your name, plus interest. I turned to Vivian. You humiliated me. Security restrained her as she lunged. Hartwell Medical Technologies has withdrawn every investment. Your accounts are frozen pending fraud charges. She collapsed, sobbing. Then Sienna. You're pregnant with another man's child. I projected the message as proof of the scheme. Derek stared at his wife, destroyed. I walked out as they turned on each other. 6 months later, Hartwell Medical thrived, ethical, transparent, serving underserved communities. Scholarships funded. Clinics built. At my mother's grave, snow falling, I whispered, I was always worthy. They didn't break me. They freed me. I am Naomi Grace Hartwell, and this is just the beginning.